EQ is one of the most powerful tools in the music mixing toolbox, and everyone has their own way of using it. In this first episode of Mix Mafia, me and 6 producer friends have teamed up to share our top EQ mixing tricks with you. All super quick, practical tips to help you work with tone and frequencies more effectively in any mix. Before I pass this over to Bradley, let me kick things off with a super quick time-saving trick that you can use whenever you load up your go-to EQ. For me, F6 is the EQ I reach for the most when starting a mix. And over the years, I've always used at least one of its dynamic bands in the upper mids to quickly tame those harsh tones that often creep in. But here's the thing with F6, when you first load it up, all of the bands are static, so no dynamic bands are engaged. So watch this as I set this band to dynamic, test it quick.
Now I've learned all my lessons without you. Time made a man out of me. I was pulled from the wreck by the scruff of my neck, and you've not seen the best of me.
Perfect, it's doing what it's supposed to do. Now, since this is something that I'm going to do all of the time, I'm going to head to the drop-down toolbar and hit Save as Default Preset. Now, every time that I load up F6, that dynamic band is waiting and ready to go every time I load it up. Of course, I'm showing you this trick with EQ, but you can easily apply this to any of your other go-to plugins to help speed up workflow. Okay, Bradley, over to you, brother. Give us one of your top EQ tips.
Dan, thank you so much for that tip. I'm going to get into showing you how to make more room for your vocal in a busy mix. All right, we're losing the vocal a little bit, right? And I want to keep that vocal in the mid-range, and I want it to be bombastic the whole time. I do not want to be turning things up and down and automating. So let's go to the mixer. First step, take all the music, all the instruments, bass, guitar, drums, everything else, bus them to their own music subgroup. And then on that, I have the L1 limiter just catching overs and peaks. And then I have all my vocals going to a vocal subgroup. So you can see bus 2 is coming in from all the vocals, bus 1 is all the music. And then on the master bus, API 2500 and L2. All right, so now I want to put Curves Equator on the music subgroup bus, okay? And then in the sidechain area here, we're going to grab the bus of where all the vocals are. So now the sidechain is seeing the vocals in the sidechain, and we have to turn on the sidechain, boop. And then we can learn the sidechain, and we're gonna get a curve, hence the title, and it's going to learn the vocals and the mid-range of the vocals. So that's on. All we got to do is play it. Now, once it's learned, because you press the learn button, all you got to do is apply that curve. And now I can see the vocal specifically what it's doing. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the mid-range. Now I can take the threshold here and make room for the vocal in the music. It's really magic and super modern way of approaching EQ. That's why I love it. You can get really dramatic with this. You can also go to advanced controls and really just hone in on the mid-range here. But this is a really fun way to make room for any instrument, whether it's vocals or you got a guitar solo that comes in and you got to duck everything else. This is the way to do it. I love it. Classic, but also modern. All right, now Valentina, what you got for us? Give us your best EQ tip.
Nice tip, Bradley. My tip is to use EQ as a creative effect, especially for vocals. Sometimes ad-libs, backup vocals, or even some parts of your main vocal deserve to have a different space in the frequencies and sometimes push back for some creative effects and some interest. Let me show you what I mean. Pay attention to the last phrase of this hook. That last phrase in the hook sounds a little bit different even though it's a part of the main vocal. To achieve this effect, all you need is a parametric EQ. And what I did is roll off all of the frequencies above 4400 for this specific vocal. Let's listen to what that sounds like by itself. It gives a little bit of an underwater sound, which is exactly what we were going for on this track. But what if we actually rolled off some of the low end as well and kind of gave it a little bit more of a boxy feel?
Y me muero ya por ti, y me muero ya por ti.
We could also just roll off all of the low end and keep all of the high end frequencies coming through, giving it a little bit more of a sparkly sound, kind of like if you're playing it on a small speaker.
Y me muero ya por ti, y me muero ya por ti.
So you can really use EQ to add some interest to the way you mix your vocals and pick and choose which vocals need those kinds of effects to add more interest for the listener. All right, Marcus, what EQ tip do you have for us?
All right, thanks, Valentina. That's a really good point. EQ doesn't always need to be used just to fix things. Sometimes it can be used for a creative effect. So for my EQ tip, I want to talk about using different types of EQ on top of each other. So if we take a look at this track, I have one instance of Waves F6, which is incredibly surgical, has a dynamics band, so we can really get in there and take care of any frequencies that are popping out or harsh. But then I really like to pair that with something like a Shep 73 or a Pultec, something that gives me a more broad EQ vibe, but it also has some sorts of character, harmonic saturation, and distortion that I can get from this unit as needed. So let's take a really quick listen to the vocal.
Contigo, a fregar los trastes y guardar la loza y yo.
You can see here that I have two different bands which I'm affecting with a dynamic EQ. One is at about 274 hertz, and the other one is at about 3485, so 3.5K, let's call it. These frequencies, I'm notching them out only when there's an issue, and I'm doing this by the range and the threshold. Now, after I do that, I kind of feel like they're missing a little bit of something, so I'm going to pick some frequencies that are close. They don't have to be the exact same. In this case, 4.8K and 220 hertz. And then I'm just doing a little bit of a boost, and let's take a listen to that.
Contigo, a fregar los trastes y guardar la loza y yo. Contigo, al supe hacer la compra y lavar la ropa y yo.
So we're controlling all the issues first with a transparent EQ like the F6, and then we're bringing out some mojo, harmonic saturation with the Shep 73. Okay, let's put this in the track and listen to this in context of everything. Before.
Fregar los trastes y guardar la loza y yo. Contigo, al supe hacer la compra y lavar la ropa y yo. Contigo.
So that's using two different EQs stacked together. One surgical and the other one analog and character driven to bring out the vibe. Yanai, what's your EQ tip?
Thank you, Marcus. And here's my EQ tip. And I want to show you something brand new. And this completely changed the way that I start my mixing. It's a new plugin by Waves called Curves EQ. It's an autonomous EQ plugin. I know what you're thinking, but don't worry, because this is not going to do the work for you. It's not going to replace you. What it can do is bring you to a very good starting point with about 70 or 80% of the work done. So you can then jump in, build off that, and do some fine tuning, bring your own style and character into it. And it works very, very well. And it's so cool to use. Let me show you how. The part I want to focus on all the way down here, I grouped these 4 channels and I want to do a process on all of them because they're all supposed to kind of shine through. We have these guitars and bells and arps. And together in the mix. And we can hear them, but they're not really cutting through. And this is a great point to bring in EQ. And I'm just going to put it on that group and we're going to let it learn. So it analyzed our sound and it gave us 5 EQ curves to choose from. And I'm going to quickly browse through these and see what fits best. And then I can build off from that. Let's have a listen. This is exactly what I wanted. It's bringing up the highs and it's kind of reducing the low mid to allow place for other instruments to be playing there. Here's the before. And that's what I love about EQ, guys. It gets 80% of the work done. It clears out all the muddiness. It controls the harshness. It can boost up the highs if you need to. And it just gives you this very balanced tone to build off from. Then if you want, like Marcus showed, you can bring in some other plugins or EQs to give it some warmth, some character, some depth, anything you want to really style it. But as a surgical EQ and to remove all the problems before you get to that point, this is the tool to do it. So that's it from me, and over to you, Guy. What's your tip?
Cheers, Yanai. Now with my EQ tip, I'm going to show you how to bring some air, some clarity and some smoothness to your entire mix, whilst also removing harshness, all with one very simple EQ move. So what we're going to do is insert an instance of the REQ6 across the entire mix on the mix bus. Then I'm going to head to this band 6 over here, set this to 7K, and then I'm going to boost this up. And you'll see as I boost this high shelf, it also dips out some of these mid-range frequencies around the 2, 3, 4K area, which is currently where a lot of the harshness is sitting in the mix. So let's take a listen to what this EQ boost is doing. So you can see just with one very simple EQ move, we've managed to bring so much more life and clarity to that mix, as well as dialing out some of that harshness in the 2 or 3K area, which has made a massive difference to the sound of the mix. So that's my EQ tip for you. Jerry, over to you, my friend.
Thanks, Guy. For my tip, we're going to be taking a look at the classic Pultec low-end EQ trick. Now, here I have the Pultec Ep.1 plugin loaded directly on my 808. The first thing I'm going to do is set the low frequency knob to 60 Hertz to begin with. I find that 60 Hertz is usually a good starting point. Next, we're going to come up here to the boost knob, and I'm going to set this at about 5 dB. And then I'm going to come over here to the attenuation knob and set that at 5 dB as well. Why would you boost by 5 dB and then cut by 5 dB right there at the same frequency? With this particular analog style EQ, the attenuation knob or the cut knob is actually occurring a little bit further up in the frequency spectrum than where the low shelf boost is occurring. So what this leaves you with is a very unique curve where you're boosting the low end, but you're also cutting out some of that low mid muddiness and really tightening things up. So let's go ahead and take a listen, and I'll bypass back and forth so you can really hear the difference. We'll go in solo and in regards to the full mix. All right, so as you can hear, we're really cranking the low end and adding some analog feel to it while also controlling those low mids. It's a very simple and effective way to bring some life to the low end of your mix. All right, Dan, back to you.
Nice one, Jerry, and thank you to the whole Mix Mafia team for sharing your great EQ tips. Now that you've seen how we work with EQ, how do you work with EQ? Let us know how you best use it in the comments below. We would absolutely love to hear them. And be sure to tune into the next episode of Mix Mafia, as we'll be sharing our best compression tricks. So make sure that you're subscribed and you've hit that notification bell below so that you don't miss out on that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.